Hi, I'm Lynn, narcissistic abuse recovery coach, author, and personal survivor of narcissistic abuse. At Moving Forward with Hope, we provide guidance to assist to validate your experiences in dealing with a narcissist, help to rebuild after the treacherous path, and move forward into your next journey. Validate, rebuild, revolutionize.
Welcome back to another episode of the Moving Forward with Hope podcast. This is Lynn, your host. I am so glad that you are here. We are dedicated to helping you navigate the journey of recovery from a toxic or narcissistic relationship. We hope to provide the validation you may need, help you rebuild and move forward to revolutionize your life so that you can do the things that you want to do. The very passions, the very desires that you have in this life. We want to help you make it a reality, not just a dream. As you know, toxic relationships hold us back and hold us down. They are dead weight. Someone is trying to extract something of value from you against your will, which is why manipulation is used, because you would never do it, whatever it is, under normal circumstances. Toxic relationships are emotional dead weight that we carry, which can turn into physical dead weight and a whole host of other issues. I'm here to encourage you to be free. Now, this is a podcast, and I cannot see directly into your life. But when we are able to cut the dead weight and move forward with our hopes and dreams and live life more simply, we can do amazing things. As some of you know, on a side note, I took a sabbatical. I took 1 year off from this podcast so I could work on my personal journey. And while I am writing my story, so to speak, I spent time traveling outside the USA and feel even more refreshed than I have in a long while. It's been an amazing year, and I am grateful for the opportunity that has presented itself. So I speak this message from the heart, and I am with you every step of this journey. It's definitely heartfelt. I have lived everything I speak about. I could not do this podcast without my lived experiences. I say thank you to all of my listeners who have remained and subscribed and continue to speak awareness and shared our podcast over this past year. On a side note, if you wish to email me or the show directly, please send us an email at info@movingforwardafterabuse.com. So let's get back to it. Today, we are diving into a topic that hits close to home for many survivors: toxic relationships, which can include dating relationships. Toxic relationships are more prevalent than many people think. And we start to see the signs of this toxicity. We can almost see it everywhere. And at times, it can be a bit much. It's good to see the signs everywhere. That is the beginning of waking up. You are not crazy. In today's episode, we're going to unpack some of these behaviors. 2, we'll be talking about the reasons people stay in toxic relationships, why it's hard to leave, and then we'll get into the 17 toxic behaviors you should be aware of so you can recognize when things have crossed the line and begin to reclaim your emotional safety. Yes, I've got 17 of them today. Let's start with an important truth, another side note. Every relationship has its ups and downs, but there's a huge difference between occasional conflict and ongoing toxic behavior that consistently harms your emotional well-being. We are addressing the chronic, long-term toxic behavior. Did you know 1 in 3 adults will experience some form of emotional or psychological abuse in their relationships at some point in their lives? And unfortunately, many of these toxic behaviors go unnoticed for years before they're identified and addressed. This is the very reason why our podcast exists. But by then, the emotional scars run deep, and the cycle of abuse feels nearly impossible to break. Have you been there? Can you relate to this? But it doesn't have to be this way. Today, we are breaking down some more of the common toxic behaviors so you can start recognizing the signs early and take steps to protect yourself. And if you're like me, we have to hear these more than once. We have to normalize having discussions around these behaviors so we can become adept in recognizing them and speeding up the time it takes for us to recognize them. Now let's address why people stay in toxic relationships. Leaving a toxic relationship isn't simple. It's not as straightforward as walking out the door. Emotional, psychological, and even societal factors come into play. Let's talk about some of the reasons people stay in toxic relationships. The first being the fear of being alone. Many stay in toxic relationships because of the fear of loneliness. The idea of being alone, even after all of the pain, can feel more terrifying than staying in the unhealthy relationship. Are you worried about being alone? Second, the emotional investment. After spending so much time, energy, and emotion on the relationship, it feels like walking away would be throwing all that effort away. It's like an investment that you don't want to lose, even though the returns are clearly not there. Are you waiting for your investments to pan out? Third, hope for change. Many hold on to the hope that their toxic partner will change. The thought is maybe they will go back to being the person they were in the beginning. This hope keeps people stuck as they grasp at moments of kindness or promises of change that rarely materialize. Are you holding onto hope today? Next, societal pressure. There's still this pervasive idea that being in a long-term relationship or marriage is somehow a badge of honor in society, even at the cost of your own emotional health. But times are changing, and more people are choosing to prioritize their well-being over societal expectations. We are evolving. And the last item is fear of DV when leaving. The threat and the actuality of a DV incident is most prevalent after leaving an abusive relationship. The departure must be carefully crafted to determine the time to leave. If you've been in one of these relationships, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and the gray rock method for being able to handle the relationship emotionally before you can depart, if that is what is best for you, may assist during that time. These are just several of the reasons why leaving a toxic relationship can be so difficult. But having this knowledge of why people stay in toxic relationships helps us to fully understand the situation. Now let's get into the heart of today's episode. Here are 17 behaviors that are common in unhealthy relationships. Some of these might sound familiar. If they do, remember, you are not alone. The first is emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation can be subtle or overt, but it's always about control. Toxic partners often guilt trip or play the victim to manipulate how you feel. They twist the truth to make you feel like their unhappiness is your fault. This can erode your sense of self-worth and make you question your reality. Second, blame shifting. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, a toxic person will shift the blame onto you. They make you feel like you're the one at fault for their behavior, which creates confusion and makes you doubt your own perspective. Third, inconsistent words and actions. Have you ever been told one thing, but their actions didn't align with their words? This inconsistency, it's destabilizing. It can cause you to feel off balance, wondering what is real and what isn't. 4, pressuring you to share personal information. In healthy relationships, trust is earned gradually. A toxic partner may pressure you into sharing deeply personal information early on, or whenever you're not ready, and then use it against you later, creating a power dynamic where they hold your vulnerabilities over you. 5th, using logic to invalidate your feelings. Sometimes toxic individuals use excessive logic to make you feel like your emotions are irrational. This is a way of undermining your feelings and making you question your intuition. You have the right to feel what you feel without needing to justify it logically. I feel like I need to repeat that. You have the right to feel what you feel without needing to justify it logically. Folks, this stuff is deep. After each one of these, we could pause to allow time to think about each one and digest it further. Number 6, guilt for setting boundaries. When you establish a boundary, a toxic partner will try to make you feel guilty. They might say something like, "I just want to be close to you," or "I care about you more than you know." This creates a sense of obligation, making it hard to maintain boundaries. They try to push back on your boundaries rather than willfully respect them. 7, unwanted emotional attachment. Even after you've been clear about your emotional boundaries, toxic partners will often push past them, projecting their feelings onto you. They may misinterpret kindness as romantic interest and become overly attached despite your efforts to keep your distance. They deliberately misread you and then say it's your fault. Next, bringing up old conversations. One of the most frustrating tactics is when a toxic partner brings up past issues or arguments to make you feel like you're still withholding information. This is a way to keep you feeling defensive and off balance. Folks, these tactics are deliberate. If you sit here and do not see it as deliberate, you are suffering from cognitive dissonance. Your mind cannot see that it is deliberate. Once you see that toxic behavior is manipulation and deliberate, you will not be free from the chains of it. Next, passive-aggressive communication. Instead of addressing issues directly, toxic individuals may use passive-aggressive behavior, which leads to unresolved tension. This makes it difficult for you to have open and honest communication, and it keeps you second-guessing their true feelings. Next, playing the good guy role. A toxic partner might constantly remind you of how, quote, good they are or how good they've been to you, emphasizing their sacrifices and highlighting how much they've done. This is often a manipulation tactic to make you feel indebted to them. Next, misinterpreting your emotional distance. when you create emotional distance for your well-being, a toxic person might interpret it as rejection and accuse you of being distant on purpose to hurt them. This turns your healthy boundary into an emotional weapon used against you. I'm telling you that toxic people have a million different tactics up their sleeve. It's like a chess game. It's a total game for them. If you play the bishop, they get out the rook. Next, framing rejection as a personal injury. Even after you've clearly communicated that you're not interested in a romantic relationship, for example, a toxic partner will frame your rejection as a personal offense. They make it seem like your boundaries are an attack on their feelings. Refusing to let go of romantic feelings. Some toxic individuals will continue to push their feelings onto you, even when you've expressed disinterest. This refusal to let go creates emotional pressure and can feel suffocating. They are trying to pressure you into changing for their sake. Ladies, there are times that you don't have to be nice. This is a side note. Society has made it so that women should behave a certain way, and being nice is one of them. Sometimes being nice gets in the way. Sometimes you have to be not nice in order to move forward in your journey of healing and recovery. I give you permission to be not nice today. And it's not for the sake of being a jerk. You don't have to be in the role that society says you ought to be in. Think about that when you have more time. It's okay to go against the flow. You are choosing to respect yourself. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing women respect themselves. This too can feed into other areas of your life, at work, for example, in friendships. The next one, we're at number 14, is over-personalizing your actions. A toxic person may interpret your independent actions, whether it's traveling or spending time alone, spending time with your dog, focusing on work, as indirect comments on your feelings for them. They take your personal decisions personally, creating unnecessary emotional tension. They deliberately read you wrong, and then you feel you have to explain your behaviors. You don't have to explain your behaviors to some people. Next, using time as an emotional weapon. Toxic partners will emphasize how long they've known you or how long they've cared about you as a way to justify why you should reciprocate their feelings. They use time to guilt you into maintaining a relationship that you expressed no romantic interest in. If you feel that it's time to move on because your intuition says so and you feel right about it, then trust your intuition, and that relationship with yourself can be built over time. Got two more. Number 16, over-dramatizing the importance of the relationship. A toxic person may exaggerate the significance of your connection, making you feel as though you owe them something simply because of how important you are to them. This is a way to create an emotional obligation that isn't actually based on mutual respect. They're trying to draw you in or keep you engaged when the relationship is no longer suitable for this. And lastly, number 17, refusing to respect the end of the relationship. Even after you've clearly set boundaries, a toxic partner may continue pushing for more, refusing to accept the relationship is over. They try to maintain a presence in your life, often against your wishes, making it hard for you to fully move on. It's important to remember that toxic behaviors are not always blatantly in front of us. They may be hard to detect and see. They may be subtle. They may be insidious and difficult to identify when we're emotionally involved and invested. If you recognize any of these behaviors in your relationship, know that you are not alone and that you have the right to protect your emotional well-being. I want to thank you for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you or you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it. And if you've enjoyed listening to our podcast, please drop a positive review, and thank you for listening. This is Lynn, and I will see you in the next one.